Yeah, let me talk a little bit about Drive Electric Florida, and let me tell you about Drive Electric Orlando, because there are some very, very special things happening in Florida now that are very important on a national stage as well as a global stage. It isn't easy to do what we're doing here in Florida, and it's just a sign of how important it is when you have cooperation between really key stakeholders, both industry and public organizations. Very difficult to do, and we're doing it live here in Florida. So let me tell you a little bit about what those things are, and do a couple of the words about some of the future technology. So we have been working really hard in Florida, automakers, utilities, great utilities here in Florida, NGOs, environmental groups, the counties, the cities, the state, the Department of Energy, the city groups, and so on. For years now. We all started to get together, I don't know, 2007, 8, 9. And then a couple of years ago decided we have got to get better organized. Because what we need is a task force, a group that we just want to really organize ourselves so that we can take action at a state level more effectively than we've done it today. So we organized ourselves probably not more than 2 years ago into Drive Electric Florida. It is just a stakeholder open membership, a stakeholder group that is trying to just do the right thing in the state for plug-in electric vehicles. What does it take? What do we need? A balance between education outreach, policy initiatives, infrastructure, so a little bit of everything. And let's cherry pick the best things that we know we have to do. The mission is to support and accelerate the adoption of plug-in electric vehicles. What's it going to take? Florida's already doing pretty well. It's number 5 in the states on EV sales. Even on a per capita basis, that's pretty darn good, especially because Florida doesn't have a vehicle incentive or anything like that, where many other states have in place already. Who belongs to Drive Electric Florida? Who we are. The utilities, electric vehicle manufacturers, infrastructure providers, Department of Energy Clean Cities coalitions, of which we have at least 3 or 4 here in the state of Florida, environmental groups, local governments, and other EV industry experts. So very, very cross-functional, which is really important to get anything done. We have materials online. I can tell you what at the website, just again, almost organize ourselves as much as organizing and educating other folks. But the brochures, facts, were tied to an economic study that FPL and others put together here in the state of Florida. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So that's important too, because we had to, to make sure that we have ways to speak to people in an organized and aligned way that gives people one voice. One very, very important thing about growing any EV market is education and outreach. So members of Drive Florida are very, very visible. We try to attend any conference going on in the state as well as national, even global. We talk about Drive Electric Florida again as a way to sort of almost message ourselves, but also message out to others what's going on here and make ourselves stronger and more aligned. So we're very, very public, trying to do as much as we can, our membership to get out there and talk about EVs in the state of Florida. We also support, for sure, the National Electric Drive Week, which just happened here a few weeks ago. In September, there were 13 events this year in Florida. Last year, I think there were 6 in Florida, so there are 13 events now. It's just another sign of growing attention, especially by members. I know that Ryan Culver is sitting right now. I know, thank you very much, you guys, up there in the Panhandle. We hadn't had events all the way through, from Pensacola over to Tallahassee this year that we had those. So, it's sort of growing in awareness as every member gets more and more engaged in their community. So, very, very important. One thing we did this year, especially very, very important, because Florida does not have a vehicle incentive, it does not have an infrastructure incentive. It has an HOV access, but the only HOV lanes in the state, I believe, are down in South Florida near Miami, but not up in here. So that isn't really a motivator to market growth. So one thing we made it a priority to do this year is to really get organized on the policy. How, what can we propose legislatively to sort of send the right signals across the state that this is important? And so we went up as under the umbrella of National Drive Electric Week. We actually got a big group of us together, organized messages, and the Capitol Hill courtyard right in front between the old Capitol and the new Capitol, and had sessions with a lot of legislators during the day, during the National Drive Electric Week. And a very, very opportune time to talk to several committees that are very, very important and influential, making sure that they understood sort of who we were and this cross-sectional stakeholder relationship is really, really key because they see that we're not just sort of a bunch of people just licking envelopes and saying, hey, we really demand some things. We are people who really matter to the state. We're driving forces of the economy, and we wanted to make sure they understood those talking points. What are the benefits of electric vehicles? What does it mean to the state of Florida? So it went over very, very well. It's the first time we've ever done a Drive Electric Day at the Capitol. Very, 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 very effective. So probably plan to do that again next year. But the key is that we've sort of laid the foundation in order to have hopefully a bill move into the legislative session this year. And let's see if we can get something passed here that's going to help drive the EV growth a little bit better here in Florida. And by the way, there are some logos there from the companies that ended up agreeing to share the logos. There are a lot more members of Drive Electric Florida, but these are the ones that actually got organized fast enough to get their logos out to the public. And I know I have permission to use these here in context. Nice group of folks. So here were the talking points. Again, when you're talking to legislators, you got about 5 seconds to make a point. And so these are the messages that we honed and said, all you got to know are these things. So yeah, it was very, very important. I'm not going to go through this today, but just to know that we are very, very focused on talk simple, talk fast, get your point across, explain why it's good for the state, why it's really important, and let's try to get some things here done in the state that are helpful to the cause. And then, actually, just a week ago or so, a number of us that are actually sitting in this audience today have been able to put together a draft bill to support electric vehicles in the state of Florida. It would be a sales tax exemption. We are not at all sure whether anything like this will pass. We think there's going to be some resistance, but we're going to try. We're going to keep trying and keep talking about what matters and so on. And this would matter if we can get this through. So just so that everyone here broadly knows, we are working on legislation. We actually have lobbyists in Tallahassee helping us get the messages to the right folks, and we do intend for this thing to go forward. We do actually have sponsors for this bill as well. So that's the good news. One of the things on the long to-do list, probably the highest priority, is workplace charging. Workplace charging, I'm going to talk about this several times here today, but workplace charging is probably the most important infrastructure from a vehicle growth perspective. The Department of Energy has taken a very careful look at in the EV Evermore project. They've taken a look at their workplace charging challenge and determined that employees at companies that offer workplace charging, even if it's just backup outlets against the wall, are 20 times more likely to go and buy an electric vehicle than employees of companies who do not participate in workplace charging, do not offer electric vehicles, which is very close. 20 times more likely. So when you talk about the direct relationship between doing infrastructure and resulting in vehicle sales, which is what we have to get to have any future benefit from V2G or ancillary services or all the grid management and metering stuff you guys were talking about, it was awesome. You're going to have vehicle growth. Nothing matters if we can't get this population to grow. So workplace charging is a big deal. That is one of our high priorities here. I'm going to be starting soon to work with not only the Twin Cities group, but also utilities across the state. I think every one of us is trying to think about how do you directly get a strategic approach in place for the state of Florida that gets every corporation from the largest number of employees down to the smallest, and how we get them on board looking at EV charging as a really great thing we can do together as a state. It's good for lead points, it's good for sustainability initiatives. Every corporation has these goals and these ambitions. It's good for employee morale, it's good for a lot of so very, very important. All right, that's Drive Electric Florida. Awesome project, awesome stakeholder. You do not find this in most states. California, this is one thing they do well. They also have thousands of people to put on those initiatives. We do it in all of our spare time. So we're getting a lot done, but we're also cherry picking all the best ideas from every other state and bringing in and locally as well. So we're doing really great for how we operate on the shoestring down here, but very, very effective, very complex. Let me talk just for a moment also about Drive Electric Orlando, so you can understand what this program is too. I'm going to give just a high-level picture of it without going into all the details. But Drive Electric Orlando is really the brainchild of the Electrification Coalition. This is Robbie Diamond's SAFE group, Securing America's Future Energy. It's a group made up of retired military and folks that are environmentally minded and want to see us get off of oil for energy security reasons. A lot of sort of left, right side, doesn't matter, Republicans, Republicans and liberals, coming together to just get off of oil because it's been so bad for our country from many, many energy security standpoints. So Robbie was looking for a couple of very specific targeted projects to do, and he did one in Fort Collins, Colorado. You take a city that is not known for any awareness of energy security or environmental, you just drop into a community and raise awareness and build a community of EV buyers, and he proved that he could do it. Here in Orlando is the second project, and the second project is, can you put electric vehicles into the world's, I believe, largest rental vehicle market, and can you raise awareness through an extended car rental experience in a car electric vehicle, and then go home and motivate folks to buy these vehicles. So this program's been active here for about a year and a half, 2 years. Nissan Leafs run the program. I think there's still a Nissan Leaf in the program. I know now they've got 30 volts in the program as well. So the fleet's expanding. These are all available at Enterprise Rent-A-Car at the airport. You have to rent them ahead of time online. You don't just get handed the keys at the airport and don't know what you're getting into. They want these to be great experiences. They want you to know what you're getting into. And the point is that it is a very, again, stakeholder-heavy, community-organized event. Look at the participants in Drive Electric Orlando. Hotels, resorts, theme parks, others in the community in the Central Florida area. These are all folks, almost all the folks up here on the board, these project partners, have all installed charging. A lot of it's overnight charging also in hotels and so on, daytime during the parks. These are folks that are all aware of plug-in electric vehicles. This is also very, very hard to do. And we're trying to make it successful down here. So the point is, when we have a community like this, it's already very like-minded, very interested in plug-in electric vehicles. The time is now to seek out these things. When you bring people into town, or when you've got a relationship with a company that regularly brings folks into town, get those folks aware of this program. It's all online through Drive Electric Orlando. And let's try to help each other focus on the thing that matters most, and that is the experience of driving an electric car. You've heard a lot of folks today tell you why these vehicles are fantastic to drive. I know all of you are aware of this science as well. You drive these vehicles, it's fabulous, but getting the keys to these cars and driving them is one of the only ways to convince somebody personally that it is the experience that everybody's raving about. So really, really important. There were over 200 chargers, publicly available chargers in the Central Florida area, in the Orlando area actually. Big, big, big community. A lot of thanks goes to Ava at OUC and Jennifer before Ava's time at OUC in putting an awful lot of infrastructure in place, and the Department of Energy, who provided a lot of grant funding for a lot of the infrastructure, and Helder Graves as well, who made a lot of that early infrastructure happen. So we've got a very, very infrastructure satisfied community, and now we've got folks in the vehicle adoption and use. That's it for Drive Electric Orlando. I hope I covered that enough. I know I was going to jump through that, but that's Drive Electric Orlando, and another great opportunity down here that's very unique in the country, actually unique in the world. And then just a few more comments about now over to the GM vehicles and kind of what I do when I'm not doing all these other things down here in Florida or nationally. You've heard a lot about these vehicles today. You guys all know the Chevy Volt I bring into all the events. Now I'm driving the Cadillac Beetle, we go into that too. The Chevy Spark is an 82-mile vehicle today. It's available only in California and in Maryland and in Oregon. And the reason was, it's just, we knew it wasn't ready. It wasn't, we're really anxious for the Volt or the B to get to market. That's a 200-mile vehicle. We think that makes a big difference. That will be a 50-state vehicle. That's important for the market. We've seen all the same numbers if you do our own research. We're very, very excited about that one actually being able to change the mainstream. Where we think that the Chevy Volt is already mainstream ready, and we are working sort of in that phase right now. We've already cleared out a lot of early adopters. We've gotten to see it into this early mainstream market right now. The Chevy Volt, as others have mentioned, this new second-gen Volt. I'll talk a little bit about that one. That's in dealerships now. It's being shipped East Coast, West Coast. It'll get down here just as soon as, well, I would imagine there's some already here from dealers swapping vehicles, which is what happened in the first generation Volt as well. You start to see that happen before we can sort of formally start the other dealership deliveries, but it'll get down here sort of in a couple of months here. And you'll see the Chevy Volt second generation down here. And then the Chevy Bolt will be, I can now tell you, since we announced a couple weeks ago, that it will be coming next year. So I know I hinted a lot to a lot of you guys, where's that infrastructure? I use a DC combo, SAP combo, fast charging infrastructure. I'm going to beat you to market, everybody. I just can't tell you. I can't give you dates. I know I can tell you dates. It's here next fall. I'm going to beat you with, to market before a lot of this DC combo gets the ground level. But there you go. I did want to just mention a little bit about this 40 miles. A lot of people have talked today about 40 miles and why it's so important. When we designed the Volt back in 2007 and thought about what it needed to be, and remember we have a lot of experience with EV1 and sort of a 100-mile range electric vehicle and what it means to sort of have a limited range, although again, consumers don't realize how little they actually do drive. We poured into the Department of Transportation data, the household survey information, this is again way back in 2007, and found the same numbers that everyone now talks about, which is 80% of Americans don't drive more than 40 miles a day, commute more than 40 miles a day. And we knew that 40 meant something very, very significant. If we can get 80% of Americans off of commute gasoline, that would mean so much to this country. Environmental, energy security, and on and on and on the list goes. So we became very, very fixated on a 40-mile vehicle to minimize the cost of extra battery on a vehicle. We know that's going to do most of the trick, get most people off of gasoline, and then put a comforting extended range gas engine on the thing so that you can go cross country if you want to. Right? I can go from Orlando to Miami without thinking about it. So that's sort of the genesis of this data. What's really interesting is so today's vehicle. So this was so today's the new generation Volt, of course, has been explained here today. It goes over 50 miles on the battery, has over 350 miles on the extended range gas vehicle. That looks like a gas vehicle. Just take that thing to California if you want today. Just like a regular gas vehicle. But anytime you're driving around town, anytime you get a full charge in that vehicle, you have 50, actually 53 by the EPA range on the battery alone. What's really interesting, there it is right there. So what's interesting is that this is John Smart's data, John from INL, great colleague out there at INL, actually put this data together. There's a very, very important project. The DOE with Idaho National Lab sits on top of some data from the EV project, and it's thousands and thousands of vehicles. It's predominantly Nissan Leafs. I'm going to say there are 5,000 Nissan Leafs in this data set. There are probably 2,500 Volts in the data set. And subsequently, Honda, Toyota, and Ford saw the value of this data coming out of INL and DOE data and determined that they wanted to voluntarily add their data into the mix because it told so many things about electric vehicle miles traveled. Very, very important data. There's no other data set like it on the planet. So very, very important data. And what it shows is, here is that if you look, for example, what it shows is the value of 40 miles of electric driving. If you look at the second set of bars, the Chevy Bolt here, the second column set here, compared to the Nissan pure battery electric vehicle and the other vehicles down here. What you see is the blue are the annual annual electric vehicle miles traveled for these vehicles. And what you see is that the Volt with 40 miles of electric driving drives pretty much the same number of electric vehicle miles as all the other pure electric vehicles in the data samples. Right? That's really important. It tells you that the Volt is more like a BEV than it is a PHEV, with other vehicles maybe having 20 miles or 11 miles range or whatever. So we're going back to the hard thing to communicate, and the thing that we're trying not to communicate anymore like engineers. I've never done advertising on TV about this. But I'm saying that the importance of getting 40 miles electric is really critical. We've gone ahead on the second generation Volt because we could, and bumped that up to 53 miles of electric range because we could. Current Volt drivers wanted a little bit extra. But it doesn't mean that it's important to go more. In fact, what we really want to focus on is getting cost off. That's still our number one priority, is getting this vehicle more affordable for many more consumers. So that's the number one priority. But I did want you to understand that it's very, very important data. And like I said, I work very closely with both DOE and INL on this. The other thing that's been coming up today is also talk about batteries and stuff. And I do want to highlight this because this is really, really important. A lot of you probably can't remember 2007, 2008, 2009, when we were first concepting and developing these vehicles. And you might not have, we might put on a strong face outwardly, but inwardly, we're wondering, will this hold up? Is this going to be as good as we think? Is our lab testing, is our test track testing, is everything we're doing, I mean, working through the night, years and years in a row, is it going to pan out? Is this going to be 5-star safe? Is it going to be, are the batteries really going to be high quality? Are they going to be reliable and durable? These were things, and look, how important is a liquid thermally conditioned system, both hot and cold? And it turns out all these things are important. We over-design first-generation Volt, but automakers have to over-design first-generation vehicles. That's where some of your cost also comes in first-generation technology, because you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough real application data to know who's going to do something crazy with these vehicles. And so you design for the Volt driving only on gas and never being plugged. You design for the vehicle always driving on electricity and never stirring the fuel in the tank or never putting in new oil in the gas. So you have to design for all extremes. What we found, this is about 6-month-old data, so now the numbers are even better. This was at the time we had driven 1 billion miles on the Volts that are out there in the US driving around. We had accumulated 700 million miles of electric miles on the batteries, 700 million miles of electric data. And again, we have a lot of data that comes through OnStar with Volt drivers who agree to share data with OnStar. So we pour through battery data constantly. What we found is over those vehicles that were out there in the field, adding up to 700 million electric miles, we had produced in those vehicles 22 million battery cells. And across 22 million battery cells produced, we found fewer than 2 problems per 1 million cells produced. That's pharmaceutical level quality. So for folks that say, you know, hey, but we're not sure about the battery quality, we're not sure how it's going to hold up, this is phenomenal battery cell quality, and it's the reason why we feel so good about our battery choices and our suppliers and our technology and what we've done with our supplier, LG Chem, to really like it. It's why a lot of companies have actually moved out of LG Chem. Phenomenal result in a first generation technology. So very, very important. Remember, this is first gen battery. All right. You've already heard probably enough about the Chevy Volt. 53, we were shooting for 50 EV miles. We try to be careful when we publicly announce what we're shooting for. You have to wait for the EPA to tell you, yes, that's what we're going to give you. We ended up getting 53 EV mile score on that, and so that's great. Even on the gas side of the vehicle, if you drive today from Orlando to Los Angeles, only on the gas side, you'd expect to be over 40 miles per gallon on the gas side only. These are high fuel-efficient vehicles, and of course, everything we plug in, just no gasoline at all. This vehicle, you see the pricing there, $33,995. You take into account the $7,500 federal tax credit, which is still so needed in this marketplace. Folks are really counting on that incentive staying in place. It's something that is probably the #1 mover in the market of most of the mainstream vehicles. 90% of trips we expect to be all electric. Today they're 80% on the current Volt. With these new numbers, we do expect 90% of all Volt drivers' trips to be all electric now without gasoline. Because that's how Americans drive, that's how our Volt drivers are driving. And 1,100 miles between gasoline fills on average. Here's the Volt with the V. We are shooting for 200-mile electric range. I'm going to guess we'll get it, but we are shooting for 200 miles. That's I'm sorry, let me go back and just mention this. That 53 miles on the Volt right now, that's a 40% battery improvement. Battery improvement, 40% in just what? 4 years? 4 years, 5 years? That's a stunning improvement given how much we've learned actually in the last 10 years. The Volt battery, so we're going from a spark battery that's capable of 82 miles now to this 200-mile range Volt 8, our Volt. 2.5 times improvement, 250% improvement. Again, stunning improvements being made in batteries. A battery electric vehicle, a pure battery electric vehicle, simpler battery technology, simpler to do, but still 250% improvement is huge. I won't even bother going into the cost data, which you've seen today. That was also a great piece of work on what you've seen there and what we announced about the battery cell costs coming down, very, very important too. 50-state availability, my last slide. So what's it going to take, all of us, to move this market? Number one, it's still about consumer demand. Most consumers still don't know these vehicles exist. Just across the population, what do you really know about electric vehicles? Which one do you want to buy? They don't know they exist. Which is why Workplace charging becomes really important because every employee at the company who walks in the front door and sees some bank of funny vehicles with cords tied up to something on the wall starts to ask, hey, Joe, what is going on over here? That's awareness building. That's the effect of having workplace charges at work. You sort of affect one company's base of employees at a time. Really, really important. We are still trying to really drum up this consumer demand. I spent a lot of time working with the Department of Energy in Washington, D.C. about thinking more along the lines of national awareness campaigns. There are a lot of us that are nonprofits, there are foundations, a lot of us talking about this. It's hard to get these things going. There are a lot of voices and a lot of parties. But I think everyone has consensus on the idea that as we speak with one voice on sort of a national level, we are all struggling to get the attention of a lot of us. Gasoline prices don't help either. You need to write that in the city. But gasoline prices don't hurt alternative fuel. It's very, very tough for us. Build awareness, the national awareness campaigns, and when I talk about this effective butts and seats, you hand the keys to your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, your aunt, your neighbor, and it takes in 10 minutes, you explaining the vehicle and them driving it changes perceptions. You just gotta give these folks the keys to the car and make them take the 10-minute ride with you, and everything changes. So really, really important to focus on butts and seat programs. Installing charging infrastructure at a faster pace, including your role of utilities. I'm speaking to all utilities in the room. Do you all know how I feel about this? I think there's a real cooperative role between utilities and infrastructure providers, and we've just got to start doing the right things. Again, a focus on, if I had to call out two things, most charging is done at home. I think we have to focus really on workplace charging. A lot of you guys are already doing it, and you're doing awesome. Workplace charging for all the reasons I noted. And then public DC, in my case, especially the SB combo systems. You don't have to do a lot of public DC, but you need a story to tell in Florida, just like you need a story across the country. Tesla's done it nicely from East Coast to West Coast and now moving from north to south. We need a story to tell in Florida that just shows that you can drive from Pensacola over to Jacksonville. We just have to be able to tell a story. You do it once, you do it right. You don't. We're done for a while. At least the longer range commuting that allows you to go to meetings between Orlando and Tampa. You charge once or you don't charge at all. And you at least peace of mind, security, how you could. The other reason where public DC becomes then important increasingly is today, 60 to 80% of all charging is done at home. That's more INL data, based on 8,000, 10,000 vehicles worth of data, both pure BEVs and extended range vehicles that are doing. So 60 to 80% of the charges all done at home. These are almost all single-family home folks that just know how to plug your vehicle into the outlet, or plug Christmas lights outside, or plug inside your garage. There's a whole audience waiting to get into electric vehicles, but we have to deal with multi-dwelling units. We have to deal with apartments, condominiums, and so on, people who park on the curbside. In my mind, the future for those folks is not building code. Still nice, we ought to do it. But those things are so long in duration, fixing a building code that requires and mandates a garage and all that stuff. The real ticket here, I think, is going to be public DC, where once a week, twice a week, a person that lives in a condominium who can't otherwise charge can own an electric vehicle because they know once a week they can just pull up to a very quick charger somewhere near their community or on their way to work and quick fill their vehicle and then off they go for another 3 or 4 days of driving. Because again, most Americans don't drive more than 40 miles a day. You have a 200-mile vehicle, you know that you can drive 4 or 5 days. And the governments, I cannot fail to mention the role of state governments, local governments, and federal governments. The need to grow and add incentives right now, and to maintain the incentives that we have in place. Very, very important. Until we really reach this meaningful tipping point. We've sold as an industry about 355,000 vehicles right now in the country. We're doing better than other countries, every other country, but it's still not nearly any kind of tipping point. We're still in the less than 1%. It's just, it's spotty, it's in certain communities, but we have no tipping point. And so to pull back incentives or to not think this is the moment to hit it hard with workplace charging programs, everything we've got is going to be a problem. We're going to slide right back into gasoline vehicles if we're not careful. And there's every reason not to do that. Every benefit is for the electric vehicles, so we have to do it. One last comment, I did read something really interesting the other day. I'm 4 months late reading things, but Plug in America put out a report back in April or something. I just got around to reading it, and it was about the market barriers and stuff. In one sentence, I'll grasp any kind of hope that's out there. And I heard one sentence, it's probably obvious to all of you, but it wasn't obvious to me until I sort of read it. It said, if every EV driver out there today would convince one person to buy an EV per year, this year he or she finds one person to buy an EV, next year one, and if every new EV driver would convince one person a year, in 25 years we'd have 100% adoption of EVs throughout the vehicle park in the United States. Only one person a year, every one of us. I thought I could do that. That I can do. I have trouble reaching the 1 million, but maybe I could do my one person. So I thought that was at least hope enough for me to move on. With that, I want to thank you very much for your time, and I'll take any questions if you have any questions.
About 2 months ago, I got a purchase order for 9 2016 Chevy Bolts. My vendor called me and said, "You're not going to get that." His answer was, apparently Chevy and GM decided to do a short production run and there was no allocation for government fleets. Is that a true statement?
So this is, it's true that it's very hard to ramp up production of a vehicle, and you have to decide where to go. But it is completely the same situation today with the 2016 Volt as it was in 2010 when we started the 2011 Volt, the first Volt ever. Franchise laws in all the states mandate, require us that in a reasonable amount of time, every dealer in a particular state has been satisfied. I can't give the 51st production Volts to one dealer in all 50 states. I can't do that by law. I have to, if I give it to one dealer in California, I kind of got to, within a reasonable amount of time, finish California. And I've got to, if I start in Maryland, I got to finish the state of Maryland. So you have to decide where you're going to send the trains and the trucks with these vehicles on board. And it's just simply a speed issue of how fast, where do you tell each truck coming off the factory line, where are you taking your shipment? You're going east, you're going west, and soon you go south. So it is true that it takes about 3 to 5 months to get a new vehicle. This is true for the Corvette, the Camaro, Silverado. It doesn't matter what vehicle automakers are talking about. It takes time to ship them and obey all state laws that govern fair availability and fair sales of the vehicles. And that's all that's different. So yes, it takes us a little long here because we, General Motors, can't say how fast the vehicles are coming here. We had to direct the first trucks east and west to the hottest markets, okay? Which is why we want to keep improving the state of, the demand down here. It's no different. There is no decision that we're not going to, it is just simply the math problem of getting the vehicles fast. Within 6 months, all 50 states have these vehicles. Every dealer has access to the vehicles. It may be true that we didn't allocate them to specific areas that maybe government fleets, and I can check on that for you. But that's the reality of just rolling out these vehicles. There's a lot of pressure in those first 4 or 5 months, and we know that. And we're trying to get vehicles. What you will find, if I should probably start hunting around, I haven't heard of anything, but the first thing that happens is that unofficially the dealers down here start swapping vehicles. So I wouldn't be surprised. Stingray was one of the first down here that had the Volt, the first one in 2010. They had them within weeks of production start because they were swapping the vehicles in Texas, which was one of their very first target markets. So if you look around, there could be some number changes, but the government fleet could be a tad different, but they're coming, it just simply is. And the next production run is coming, the 2017 Volt is starting very early next year. So it isn't like we're not waiting for the summer for that. So there's no delay, we're just trying to get the vehicles all to all 50 states. Yes?
Yeah, Britta, you mentioned about the national awareness campaign, something very much needed. You're talking DOE, Washington, D.C. Is there anything specific on the horizon going forward with that?
I will tell you that EV Everywhere, the Department of Energy, started the first sort of incremental thing that you can do. And I don't know how many people submitted logos in the competition to develop a logo for EV Everywhere. And so do you guys all know the Orlando City soccer? Do everyone know what I'm talking about, Orlando City? Okay, you know the big purple and gold lion head or whatever it is? Okay. They have seen that, and they understand the viral effect of that sticker and how it's all over, certainly Central Florida, and it's been spotted in many other areas. Department of Energy is trying to replicate that. So they have a contest. That was the very first, let's begin chipping off on a way to talk together. And so pretty soon, I'm waiting any day to hear what logo won, and they plan to distribute these to everybody who wants to have events. We should have a table sitting here in a box with some of these magnets or car stickers or whatever, as a way to communicate EV drivers and automakers and utilities and events and awareness events, ride drives. That's the common dialogue, and that was a piece of glue. And so that was the first very tangible evidence I have that something's going to happen. So they are listening, and we're trying to do these things correct and fast. Yes?
Hey, Britta. So I know different automakers have different visions in terms of alternative energy vehicles. Toyota is planning to replace 90% of conventional vehicles with either hybrid or fuel cell vehicles. And GM is a big player in DOE fuel cell demonstration back in 2011. So what do you think of fuel cell vehicle in terms of GM's vision in parallel with electric vehicles, electric vehicles?
So very good question. So we are huge fans of fuel cell technology. It's fabulous. And if carbon ever matters to Americans, if carbon matters, it's the only answer for a long-range, quick fueling vehicle. It's the only answer. So we're ready with technology. We have the world's largest fleet of 150 fuel cell vehicles. We have them in California, Hawaii, and New York, and Washington, D.C. We have a lot of data out of that. The technology's there. It is, I come back to the very first point of what does it take to move the plug-in vehicle market, and it's all consumer demand. And that's what hydrogen vehicles need too, is consumer demand. Will they adopt that technology? Will they buy into hydrogen as a fuel? We love it. Again, no carbon, long range, quick fueling. There's no other answer. And bigger vehicles. Bigger vehicles, much more capability in putting it into vehicles. So there's a lot of opportunity there. The question is, if we are having to, my personal view, if we have trouble convincing folks that all I need to charge my Volt overnight is that outlet right there, or my Leaf, or any vehicle. All I need is that outlet over there. How do I get them interested in a new fuel called hydrogen, where I have to build up the infrastructure? I certainly have to build up the infrastructure. It can be done. It's not a big issue, but consumer demand has to be there. We have to have consumers responding to these technologies. So that's what it is. So we've got, we're partnered with Honda on the technology, and we've got our fuel cell ready. It just simply is the market ready for fuel cell vehicles? Love it.
In order to attract the consumers, since the company is thinking about the recycling program, where you can give your conventional vehicle as a vehicle, you get some credit and then you can buy the electric vehicle.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Is there any recycling program like you can give your conventional vehicle to the company? And
Like a cash for clunkers, but this would be a cash for gas?
Yeah, something better than that.
So I guess I would just have to say, this is expensive, this business, okay? And I know we talked a lot all morning about what the future looks like, and different costs and stuff, and those are just sort of pieces of very, very big stories. I can only assure you that this is very expensive to do, and I know, roughly how much is not reported into these technology. I can tell you, I can only tell you I've reported more than $2 billion, and I can't tell you anything more because we've never said it more publicly, but it's very expensive to put these big bets, and we have got to see more consumer demand, because the investment doesn't pay off today at all, but if there's no growth in consumer demand, it will never pay off. And so right now is the time to start seeing more interest in the technology, so that when scale matters, and it starts to matter when your costs are coming out of the technology itself, then scale really matters. Today the losses are too big on these vehicles, but we still fight for demand on these. We want people to love technology, to know that when we're ready, when pricing can be brought down and costs are down, we're ready with the demand curve, and they meet right at the same place, and off they go. So we're working on that, but yeah. We can give the cars away, and that becomes very, I feel like we all are giving
step
away.
in here so we can launch and put on.
Thank you, guys.
Your presentation.
Thank you.